pizza delivery, hotel workers, and housekeepers of Reddit. What is your NSFW story? How would you rate it 1 to 10? I delivered room service at a nice hotel back in 89-90. One night, I get a delivery for a bottle of high-end scotch to the penthouse suite. Great sale, as I get an automatic 17% on all sales. So the door opens and I get invited in. There are about 20 young Japanese men in the room, and they have one of the guys pinned down on the bed and are wailing away on his bare feet with a shoe. I see this and I don't know whether to laugh or call security. They see the stunned look on my face and reassure me that this is a bachelor party tradition where they're from. Sounds reasonable to me, so I go on my way. On my way out, several of these guys discreetly slid 10s and 20s into my hands as tips. After a couple more deliveries that night, I walked with over $250 from that room alone. 10 out of 10, would recommend. I haven't seen this in my Japanese anime.
We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description.
Story 2. I was a housekeeper at a hotel for a few years. I lived in an expensive city, so rent was high, but the pay covered the basics. One day, my boss came up to my cart and warned me to not start cleaning a particular room until it was clear. It's not unheard of for guests to request later checkouts or stay an extra day, but I've never heard someone talk about a cleaning delay in such terms before. Then, after about 10 minutes, a 30-something white male and a paramedic jog over to the room I was warned about. I didn't think it was my business to start prodding, but my first thought was, oh crap, dead body. I've heard stories from other hotel staff. It's rare, but it happens. This time, the situation was sorta worse than that. Elderly Vietnam vet rented a room with the sole intention of unaliving himself, called his son to say goodbye, and son called for an ambulance. He had already taken a crap ton of pills, but his body rejected them and he puked and crapped all over the room. They escorted the elderly man out of the room and there were tears streaming down his cheeks and he wouldn't stop apologizing for the mess. It took 2 hours to clean what I could, and we had to call a specialist service in to get the rest. I wasn't angry this time. It was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. Story 3. There was a guy who ordered the same way every week. You know who this is, give me the usual, and then hangs up. His name was Ron, and his usual was a large 14-inch sausage pizza, burned. Like there's well done where we make the cheese a uniform brown, but he wanted it further than that. Not literal black dust, but really dark all over. It was always delivery and he tipped really well. Our drivers were drivers and order takers only, they didn't work any other positions. I worked the oven and would only go on deliveries if we were way behind on orders. One day in December, I got the call from Ron, and I say, I know your address, but I've never been there. Is it easy to find? He replies, it's the one with the 2 reindeer banging in the front yard. So I'm driving around these cookie-cutter townhomes that all look the same, and sure enough, there's one with a decorative reindeer mounting another out front. I walk up to the door, and this super tan Italian guy in a purple robe and leopard print briefs, because his robe was wide open, answers the door. He shouts at me, you must be new here you go, and throws a 20 at me. Bill was $13, this was 2001. Only a 2 out of 10 in terms of NSFW stuff, but man, this was a memorable delivery. Seeing this man in person who I had cooked pizza for every week for 2 years was like seeing a centaur or a unicorn. 10 out of 10 as a customer though. Predictable, direct, kept it quick, tipped well. Story 4. Pizza delivery for 7 years. Fewer than 10 times did I see any noteworthy degree of nudity. Usually women who'd answer the door in a towel or topless, but it wasn't the opening scene to an adult video that you're picturing. But once, I delivered a pizza to an orgy in progress. If that's not a 10, I don't know what is. Except that I didn't join in. Story 5. I worked front desk for a small hotel in a small town that had 8 of those fantasy suites, where the rooms were designed to look like different things. Igloo, cave, casino, honeymoon suite, etc. There was so much NSFW stuff going on in there that the housekeepers just told me to lie to myself when I was doing the laundry. Blood on the middle of the sheet, clearly had a nosebleed. Unidentifiable stain, food spill. It was the only way to get through the days. Thank goodness I never worked third shift. Those are the employees that dealt with the most NSFW stuff, mostly thanks to noise complaints. Story 6. I was a delivery driver for 8 years and I have enough stories to write a book. Every family reunion, I would tell stories from the previous year's experiences. Family used to say I should write a book. I'll give you a quick overview of just some of the stories. Even to this day, my family will bring up stories I told them but I forgot about until they brought it up. I'm just typing without caring about spelling and grammar, so here goes. Forgot to bring a 2-liter of Sprite to these chicks getting ready to go clubbing. Went back to pizza shop. Owner said bring them 2 to say sorry. Knocked on the door. She peeked her head around the door with her obviously naked body behind the door. Handed her 1 2-liter. She reached around, showed me a boob while grabbing the first 2-liter. I tried not to look, but even without looking directly at something, you get a nice view. Then I said I actually brought 2. So instead of her putting that one down and grabbing another, she just stepped out buck naked in front of me holding 2 2-liters, showing me the world. I head back to the shop and tell the coworkers what just happened. We have a good laugh and boss says to head to the next delivery. I get to a different hotel and it's a dude that answers. 2 dudes with 2 women sitting on some chairs in the room. And I hear her telling the guys about her delivery driver. I laughed and said, "Hey, I just delivered to you. You look different with clothes on." We laughed. Easily my most memorable delivery. Used to deliver to a nudist, 50-ish, pretty saggy. Had no cares in the world that I had seen her. It wasn't the greatest, but yeah. Delivered to a woman passed out on pills. Her maybe 5 or 6-year-old pays for the pizza and just does his own thing. Pill bottles all over the living room table. I called the cops. No clue what came of it. Felt obligated. Delivered to 4 dudes. 3 of them rushed outside butt naked when I got there. 4th dude locked the door, laughing. One of the guys said we asked for the female driver, one of their friends. Pretty funny. I asked who had the cash and where was it. Delivered to a poker game with a bunch of guys who were 60 years old or so. Richer group of guys that bought out the top of a hotel. The 10 men were playing poker out in the hall. Their wives were all at the other end of the hall, all in little going out to dance gowns. Old man told me to drop the pizzas off at the table and collect the money from his wife. Found the wife and she had a $50 tip for me if I got it out from between her obvious fake boobs popping out of her gown with my teeth. Was young, too embarrassed, just grabbed it and said thanks. Delivered to a bridesmaid party. Women were like, "The pizza's here." Just kidding, it's the stripper. Pulling up my shirt and a couple girls laughing, rubbing their hands on my chest. Super embarrassing. I'm not a dancer and shy. Been tipped pills, been tipped weed, delivered to 2 people banging, seen a couple of dongs, delivered to a highway patrol or sheriff convention. Off-duty police officer says, "Come on in, have a beer with us." Sorry, I can't. He says, "Want one for the road?" Yeah, let me get right on that. Delivered to an off-duty cop's house that reeked of pot. Delivered to a maybe 15-year-old girl or so that answered the door, and as I was handing her the pizza, her uncle said, "Hannah, show 'em your boobs, you might get a discount." I only know it was her uncle because she turned around embarrassed and said, "Uncle Tom," or some other name. Easy way to make some extra tip is when you smell weed, just breathe in and say, "Smells good in here." It's always met with, "Ah, he's a cool dude." Delivered to a druggie or something, was met with a gun in someone's hand. He constantly looked out of his window the whole time I was trying to get the delivery done. I'm 34 now and I delivered from 18 to 26 or so, at a resort party vacation town, Osage Beach. Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri. Party Cove type people riddle this town, so I've seen my fair share of crap, and lots more I'm forgetting. Delivered to a guy that said on the phone when he ordered, "Get here in time, we have 2 chicks naked swimming in the pool." Got there just as they were walking out to the hotel room. Once I got in the room, the guy said, "Oh girls, drop your towels and give him a hug." Then they both hugged me, both with one leg propped up around me like Captain Morgan. The giant bottle of Jaeger empty in the sink. One couple goes into one of these spare rooms and starts banging a dude, lights on, doors wide open. The other girl just starts playing with her little puppy, split-legged on the living room floor right in front of me. 2 guys behind me just start watching the girl. Really awkward. Random crap happens to delivery drivers, trust. I used to make $200 to $300 in cash every weekend night and $100 to $200 every weekday in my town. It was pretty nice at 18 with no cares to go to college or learn a trade at the time. And yet, the amount of girls that would come down from Kentucky and St. Louis to be dock girls, making $30,000 to $40,000 in a summertime job, just showing their bikinis off and pumping gas for boys with boats, making hella tips. Delivered to the Girls Gone Wild bus, had multiple $100 tips. $250 was the biggest ever, but that was like 60 pies, 2 or 3 trips. Once delivered to a hotel, and while in the elevator, a guy said, "I'll give you $80 right now for that pizza." 3 pies, ticket was like 40. Gave him the pizza, collected the cash, called my boss and said, "I need 3 pies right now." Delivered the pies again like 20 later with no issues. Once collected on a 110 bill. Drunk woman pays with 2 $100 bills. I thought it was a 100 and a 10. Started to walk away, had a guilty conscience and turned around and knocked. As soon as I did, I knew I'd made a mistake. Should have kept walking. Told her what happened. She gave me a 100, a 10, and a 5. I was like, "Girl, you could have given me a 100 and a 50 and saved $50. FFS. Delivered to the hospital, and as I'm up in the hospital, I come to find a guy waiting for his ride inside of my car looking for my tips. I know it's my fault. I had the windows down and a couple pies in the back. I kept my tips in the middle console thing, but I was like, dude, what the heck, get out of here. He was like, I'm hungry, come on, get out. Once delivered a pizza to a club, and as I'm going to leave, a guy runs up asking for a ride. Now, I'm not supposed to give rides. He says he'll give a tip. I give him a ride. I'm pretty close to the shop anyway. Gives me a 100 for my troubles. On my way back from a delivery in the rain, I see a young guy, like 18 or so, walking down the road. I stop and ask if he wants a ride. I can take him as far as my shop and let him use the phone. He is crying and says thanks. Tells me his 3 buddies left him because he pissed them off or something. He was from St. Louis, so hours away with no phone and no help. Felt really bad for the bloke. Delivered to a club as it was closing. As I walk back to my car, a super drunk guy is carrying one of my pizzas off in between houses. I'm yelling, give that pizza back! And a group of other people walking back to their condo start to help me and call him a jerk and stuff. I get the pizza back untouched. Uneaten. Unbitten? Whatever. Night goes on as normal. Delivered to a stripper, I think. She was wearing a shirt and nothing else, with the name of a local strip club. She paid me nothing but ones, total like $40. I'm now an HVAC guy and sit in people's basements for an hour or so, and I get to know people's lifestyles intimately. 1,000+ basements a year. Some of my stories are awesome. If I can manage to link some of the videos and pics of the crap I find, I will. Lots of NSFW stuff. Some of the crap is awkward. If it's unordinary, I take a pic or video. Let me just tell you, trying to parse through this guy's stream of consciousness, it took effort, okay? I did my best. May have been hard to follow at some points. He had some good stories in there, so I didn't want to stop, though. But really, man, I get at the beginning he said he wasn't going to use grammar or anything like that, but would it kill him to just put comma in there? Anyway, that was a chonky one. So, hope you could follow along, at least a little. I will say one thing, though. The one with the 15-year-old girl and the uncle, that one's messed up. That is an issue. Story 7. A few years ago, the hotel I was working at had a few jacuzzi suites. This man and woman check in and give a trashy vibe from the very beginning. We get through the check-in and everything is fine until a few hours later. I get a call from the room. The man is clearly intoxicated and begins his rant about how his air conditioning isn't working. I immediately roll my eyes and groan internally, as 9 out of 10 times people have a steaming hot bath and fail to realize that turning on the switch doesn't immediately create a winter wonderland. We don't have maintenance on hand at this time. However, I'd be happy to move you directly across the hall for the night. This isn't enough. No, I want you to look at it. That's your job. Come look at it right now. Well, technically, he's right. However, he's drunk and calling someone an idiot when they're sober isn't the most fun experience to begin with. So I make my way to his room, knock on the door, and he opens it. Bam! Blasted by the hot air immediately. Who knew? I immediately knew something wasn't right. The room was completely dark, save a few flickering lights. My internal nope sensors were going off, and then I saw it. More than a dozen tea lights flickering in the room, a drunk man wearing leopard print undies, and I walk inside and make my way to the air conditioner. I didn't get too far before I'm greeted by a woman on my right. She's friendly and polite, and completely naked on top of the bed. I retain my professionalism, greeting her and making my way to the air conditioner. Sure enough, it's working fine. It's warm in the room because of the jacuzzi. I explain the situation to the man again. Your air conditioning seems to be fine, sir. All I can do at this point is move you across the hall. After some general rambling, the man leans in towards me and whispers in my ear, the general's at half salute tonight. Can you bang my wife for me? While he's explaining this to me, his wife is finding a more comfortable position on the bed. Now legs and kitties spread wide. I politely decline his offer and apologize, being the Canadian that I am, and return to the front desk and never heard from him for the rest of the month. The next night I came in, I was presented with a "How did we do" card, where the comment stated that they were very happy with their stay, although disappointed I didn't sleep with his wife. Story 8. A friend of mine works at a hotel. This guy called the front desk asking if they could fix the heater, which is a very common request, even though they are very easy to operate. She went up to his room, and when she got there, he had handcuffed himself to the bed and was naked. Guess he was confident she would go for him because he didn't have the key. She left him there with no key, butt naked, and didn't close the door all the way. That is exactly what someone like that deserves. Story 9. I delivered pizza in Washington State back around 15 years ago, and had several odd experiences. Most bizarre one I can remember, I was delivering several pizzas to a house which came to a total of about $36. I walk up to the house, knock on the door, and a little kid answers. He hands me 40, takes the pizzas, and closes the door. I stood there for a moment and just figured they were giving me the rest as a tip, and the parents were too lazy to get off the couch. I'm almost back at my car and I hear, "Hey, pizza guy, get back here!" I turn around and see crazy-looking blonde lady in a towel. I walk back and she starts into a rant about how I was trying to steal money from her kid. I explain to her that I thought they were just giving me the money as a tip, and if that was an issue, they can have it back. I gave her the $4 back, and after a bit more talking, she ended up giving me a $2 tip. Not that great, but better than having a PO'd customer. Thinking all was cool, I headed back to the shop. When I get back at the shop, my friend who was managing the shop was on the phone, looking a bit upset. I walk in and he gets off the phone and explains that the customer was yelling about my behavior. I explain what happened and we both figured they were crazy and continue on with the day. Fast forward 20 minutes. I have another order to take and I'm putting more pizzas in my car. I go to leave, but there's a big pickup truck in the way. I go to the driver and ask if they could move since I have pizzas to deliver. The driver responds, "Why, so you could rip more people off?" I look in closer and in the passenger seat is the crazy lady, now with crazy boyfriend driving. I go back into the shop and tell my buddy, "Crazy people here to see us." My friend, being the hilarious guy he is, grabs paper and a pen and walks outside, very obviously writes down the guy's license plate and heads back inside, then proceeds to call the cops. Shortly after that they take off, but tried to follow me for most of the night. They found it hard though in their oversized redneck truck and me in a little sporty pizza-mobile. Story 10. I worked a few months at a 5-star hotel here in Chile back in 2016. Since I speak English, I worked as a receptionist and had to deal with a variety of guests, from tourists to businessmen. A common thing to deal with was escorts who came to see businessmen. This hotel is near the Costanera Center building in Santiago, so we had businesses and other hotels around. Escort work is illegal, but we can't assume every girl or boy who comes in asking for a specific room is an escort. However, we can suspect, and for that we use the internal code Charlie. We took their info and kept their ID in the reception in case something happens. It was like my second month there, when a man came from Spain and took one room with a king-sized bed and paid for 3 days. Not even an hour after he arrived, a Charlie shows up. 19-year-old girl, blonde and green eyes. I took her info and ID and then she went on her way. About half an hour later, another one shows up, 21-year-old short and tan Latina girl asking for the same room. 1, we can turn a blind eye. 2, we start to worry. Still, I take her info and ID and then on her way to the Spanish Conquistador. We had to kick the guy out when one of my colleagues let in a third Charlie, and didn't realize it was for the same room. This time, an 18-year-old thin and pale boy with a moonstone necklace. We got 5 noise complaints after the boy arrived, and according to the guards who went to kick him out, the 4 of them were completely naked and caught a glimpse of the boy's gaping butthole while the first girl snorted a line of drugs. We had to call the cops, and I had to give a statement to them as to why we would allow 3 people into his room. For months, we kept talking about this incident with the maids who had to deal with the stains of this guy's 3-hour stay. I do not envy those maids in any way. Well, I don't envy anyone in this situation at all.